Sure, the phone is off. All right, we're live. Here we go. Ooh, so the lighting, right? So it's now dark, obviously, when I'm posting this. I usually do these during the day. I kind of like the night vibe. Like the lights in my apartment actually can do what they're supposed to do. I don't have to worry about like light streaming in, whatever. I'm excited about this one. Episode 108 for my, NF last. Of course, I'm going to be excited about it. Of course, I'm going to do a little something extra for it. So let's just get right in. What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Full Blast. I'm your host, Raj Burrows, and episode 108. So I've obviously been thinking for a while, like, obviously we're going to get to episode 108. What's that going to look like? What am I going to do to sort of celebrate this thing? For those who do not know, 108 is it's a spiritual number. It appears in Hinduism and Buddhism, and the number of beads on this mala, which is like a Hindu or Japanese Buddhist, Tibetan Buddhist rosary, has 108 beads on it. Like it's a sort of a sacred number. And for me being NF last, but also living in LA, I was like, oh, we can like do a thing. It'll be great. Very cool. And I was going to talk about like, scarcity versus abundance and really go all in on the like NF thing and my perception of the NF thing and whatever. But man, goddamn, if I didn't start listening to this Whitney Cummings podcast, man, goddamn. And like, it's weird to have this sort of meta awareness listening to something like this. Because on so many levels, I am, learning a lot, feeling a lot of feelings, learning a lot about comedy. Comedy is sort of broadly the thing I came out here to do. And it's certainly, again, there are other things I want to do out here. COVID sort of put a damp on all of them, but comedy is certainly a passion of mine. I like it. And I've been thinking about doing stand-up classes for a while and sort of seeing what that's about. Because I did it one time, like a long time. This was back in like, 2009, I guess it would have been. And like I did like a little, 10-minute set at a coffee shop. And I've like I bombed so hard. And I didn't bomb the jokes actually weren't bad, and like I remember writing them and being like, okay, the math of these jokes isn't terrible. Like the STNT part of it was totally fine. I had one bit about again, this was 2009 and I was 23, so like please take that into consideration when I tell you about this bit. It was like the only joke that landed. There are a couple people in the like. This was very much like know your audience. But I was talking about how, girls in sororities, if they want to, they have, if they want to make out with somebody, it's real easy. They just find the nearest frat boy or gay musical theater major, and that joke fucking killed. Especially because, the school that I went to, big theater scene, and that was like that was like a very common thing for like, oh, well, I just want to make out with somebody. I want to make out with somebody male. I'll just make out with this gay guy. Anyway, that's not the point. The point is I bombed really hard and I never went back to it. And I remember at the time being like, okay, I don't like this. This isn't fun for me because it was so vulnerable. And I felt so deeply exposed doing it. And, I think that it is something that I like. There's a part of me that wishes that I had just like fucking muscled through it and like done it more, because it is something that like I did enjoy the writing process, and I did enjoy sort of like crafting this material and like doing the Chris Rock thing of like think of yourself as a journalist first and then a comedian. And I was like, oh, I really like that, and I can find interesting, like asking interesting questions. It was a whole thing. I loved it. And I didn't go back to it because of my FI. My FI was so profoundly compromised, um especially like it was, again, it was a very SF thing. It was like I was using both of my demons and like being really present in the moment about my feelings in a very sensory, concrete way. And my system just freaked the fuck out. It was like, nope, not doing that. And I was like, all right, fine, fair enough. And then I did other comedy stuff like throughout in New York. Here and there, I just did, sketch classes. Like I've always very much considered myself a student of comedy. I enjoy comedy on like a number of levels. Like I don't, like if I'm weirdly, like if I'm watching a comedy special, I'm thinking about like lightly some of the technical aspects, like not all, certainly not to the level that like a Whitney Cummings level professional would think about these things. But like, yeah, like I'm looking at it and going like, okay, like let's talk, about the lighting or the this and that, or okay, that was like an interesting transition, and how, oh, that's interesting how segueing from this joke to this joke and thinking about stuff like that. So I always really enjoy that stuff because it triggers my NT. But I never went back to it. And recently I was like, you know what? I did the sketch comedy thing. I like sketch comedy. I might revisit that, but like I think I need a break from that for a minute. And I just, again, had that little NF voice being like, that like stand up is also a thing that you've loved since you were 7. So like, I don't know, maybe follow that thread that you've just like, that you keep coming back to whether you realize it or not. And I was like, all right, fair enough. And so I bring all of this up. I'm bringing up all of this consuming. I know for me as a blaster, I'm like, oh my God, get to the fucking point. I promise this context is relevant in the context of finding an alpha and why this hit me so hard. So I started just sort of like Anthony Jeselnik. He's again comedian. He started coming up on the YouTube, and I was like, you know what? There is a dude who's like he's one of the smartest dudes I know, and he has better taste. Like I'm not a huge fan of this guy. Not Anthony, but this is my friend. I'm not a huge fan of this friend. We don't really talk anymore. I didn't really like him when we were in the same friend group. But this motherfucker has the most insanely good taste when it comes to music and comedy of anybody I know. Like, if he thinks somebody is good, this motherfucker is legit. Like, I don't care. It passes the Matt test. And I remember my buddy Matt talking about Anthony Jeselnik, and I was like, you know what? All right, fair enough. If it passes his test, let me check him out. Obviously, he's fucking great. And then I see a long ass interview because I was like, oh, this guy's really interesting. And then I see he does this really long interview with Whitney Cummings, and I listened to a little bit of it on YouTube, and I am like in comedy heaven because it's just like two comics being like, they're not being funny at each other. They're just like talking about the world of comedy, their experiences in comedy, talking about obliquely like the mind of a comic and sort of what that does to you about how you like navigate the world and this and that. And, it's a whole thing. And I was like, okay, first off, this is a great podcast. Second of all, I need to accept the fact that I am a gigantic Whitney Cummings fan. Like, I just need to accept it. And again, for somebody, I'm going to say in my cohort, So like I moved to New York in 2009. That's like right around when she started to kind of blow up and she had her show, and that was like a big thing. And there was this weird bashing of her in my little mini cohort. Because her material was a little corny, debatably a little sexist, for the woke crowd in 2010. But I remember always like I would watch all of her stuff and her stand up, and like there was something about her energy that was just, I couldn't get rid of it. I was like, there's something about it that just always drew me to her in a really fulfilling way. And I don't know what it was at the time. I don't know if I could have articulated it the way that I can now. Because now I absolutely know why I'm drawn to her. But at the time I was just like, I don't know, man. There's just something viscerally about this woman that I just want to be in the room with. Like, I just want to download her brain, and I don't know why. Even though the thing at the time that she was most known for was this kind of regressive television show, right? It was like talking about like gender dynamics and men and women, but like it was sort of like a battle of the sexes type thing. And it was like, well, this is kind of relevant, but like it would have been more relevant in like 1997. And even then, it would have had to have been more Sex in the City. I don't know, it was very strange. And so I was like, okay. And so she had on. So I downloaded the whole podcast of her and Anthony Jeselnik. I want to actually find like the chronology of this. So did the episode with Anthony Jeselnik, and I was like, oh shit, she's legit. And what I initially started listening for Anthony, and it became very clear very quickly that I cared so much less about him than I did about her. I was like, I just want to hear Whitney talk to people. And then the next one I listened to was, I think I listened to Bert Kreischer next. Again, another one of my favorite comics. I just think he's fucking hysterical. And again, just like this whole time, I'm like, oh, I get her. I get her on a level that I don't. Again, I only listened to 2 episodes, but I was like, what do I get about her? Like, we're, for whatever reason, like we are cut from the same cloth. And like that was sort of at the time, like I had always sort of pegged her as like a lead TE, like somewhere in the Shanny realm, but definitely Savior Blast, probably lead Blast. I have her, my slop typing of her is Blast, Play, Consume, Sleep, ENTJ. So like a Sleep Last Shan with lead Blast. And I'm not sure about her modalities. I definitely get a strong feminine TE, weirdly, from her, just the way that she talks about her codependency. As for her sensory, I don't totally know. Again, I would really need to like listen to her more and see, sort of get out of my own bias. Because originally I had her as visual FM, but I'm definitely getting just the way that she's speaking. I was like, this feels like masculine sensory. Just the way that she's communicating. We have such a similar communication style. I'm like, yeah, I don't know, man. Like we're speaking the same language. We have the same. We really have identical blasts. It feels like I'm listening to Hassan or Kumail or any of my other type twins or the John Krasinski. Like I don't know. We feel very much in that same realm. So I was like, all right, fair enough. Cool. And I listened to the one with Bert Kreischer, and That was really great. She had one with Kat Dennings that I listened to that was really great. Like, this is all I've been listening to for the past 3 days. Like, I'm listening to it when I'm playing video games. I'm listening to it on my walk. I'm listening to it when I went for a drive. That's all I am listening to when I'm listening to stuff. It's like Whitney Cummings or like sleep meditation. Like, that's all that I'm downloading. It's been fucking great. And then she had one with what's her name? Beth Stelling. That one was fucking great. That one is not safe for work. Holy shit. That is like not PG rated. It like that's like Big Mouth plus level lewd, but it's so funny and it's so interesting. Like, I don't even want to say like, oh my god, it's so vulnerable, it's so honest. No, it's just really fucking interesting. Like, hearing these two women who are roughly the same age talking about like just being in your 30s and what, like, really NT unpacking it and sort of taking stock of where you are in life. And it's just, again, I just found it very interesting. Then she had one with Robert Greene, and this one fucked me up. This is the one that I was like, oh, I get it. I get why I like you. Because so Robert Greene, this is 48 Laws of Power guy, and it was so humbling and interesting and relatable to hear her like go from, I mean, because she's a very gregarious person. It is the kind of person, like, if we were to ever be in the same room, you would just be like, okay, we need to get the fuck out. Like, whatever they're going to do, it's about to explode. They're just going to go back and forth, and it's going to be this intense manic energy because they're just going to be a fucking feedback loop for each other. We need to get the fuck out of this room. Because she can match energy. Like, she's so, she is very gregarious and outgoing and so much play energy. Like, she's just extraordinarily adept at doing play energy. And also, like, info dominant to hell. Holy hell. Holy hell. Info dominant to hell. And so, but she gets Robert Greene on. And so Robert Greene, again, 48 Laws of Power guy, she's a recovering codependent, very openly. And she talks about how she starts this intro, and you can tell she's like it's the feeling of like when you watch somebody or listen to somebody and it feels like they're meeting God. She's like, I say not jokingly that, like, you raised me, like, you were my father. Because of your book, that was the first time I ever understood the abusive patterns in my home, the men that I was attracted to in my 20s, the men that I have to fight myself to be attracted. Like, you gave me perspective on all of these things. And she was like, I feel like I'm meeting my hero. And she was just a totally different person because she was so in her FI about it that her blast just like shut off. And it was interesting to watch them go back. Again, it was a really beautiful interview. But it got me thinking. I was like, okay, so clearly, if I've listened to 2 to 3, again, these are not short podcasts. This is like 2 to 3 hours long, each one. 2 to 3 hours. And I'm just sitting here fucking consuming this shit like candy. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And I was like, okay, that alone has to put her in the alpha conversation, like in my personal bucket of alphas. Because there is nobody who I download that much, like, ever. Like, I'm even trying to think of like the people I consider, in my alpha bucket. There are not that many, by the way. But people I look up to, people I'm like, yeah, like, I get you, whatever. Will Smith is absolutely up there for me, for sure. Jim Carrey. Again, a lot of EJs because I have single activated demon FI. So, of course, I'm going to gravitate towards EJs in general. But like Whitney in particular, I'm just like, I don't know, man. There is something about the two of us that feels very similar. And it feels like when I hear her talk, like she's just, again, just by virtue of having been on the planet for longer, but like she has put in so much fucking work on herself that it's really inspiring. And like she is one of the few people who I'm like, oh, I get like I now see what my own hurdles are in a way that I didn't before. So I don't think I'm codependent. Incidentally, I did accompany a friend to a CODA meeting once. It was very interesting, and I was like, I don't think this is me. At least not to the level that someone like Whitney would be considered codependent. But I definitely can fall into certain codependent patterns, and I attract a lot of people who have codependent tendencies. So I'm like around that a lot, and I'm like, oh, I'm sort of like subconsciously sort of absorbing a lot of what they're projecting. Again, just really laying out these sort of demon DI issues. Again, I don't want to say like, oh, you have a demon DI, you're codependent, but like she really articulates this intense imbalance when it comes to the human needs of like needing tribe validation and needing, again, in her case, it was very specifically like the approval of men, because of her literally explicitly like her father issues and this and that, at the expense of her own identity and changing herself and going, martyr syndrome to hell. And I'm like, okay, I don't have that as intensely, but I don't not have it. Like I definitely have. If I am not codependent, I'm not that many clicks away from being codependent. Like when the way that she talks about stuff, I'm like, oh fuck, I do that. Ooh, yeah, that was definitely me before I did any FI work. Oh boy. So, that was sort of a thing. But here's what really got me. And y'all are going to think that I'm fucking insane for what I am about to say. Listening to her gave me permission to be smart in a way that not many people can make me feel. So here's what was wild about this whole experience listening to her, particularly the one with Robert Greene. She also did one with Michael Rappaport, that one was fucking great. If you want like a good, just like intro to Whitney Cummings, listen to her podcast with Michael Rappaport. It's not as long. It's just fun. They're bouncing off each other. He's, again, I think he's probably some sort of like lead play ESFP, definitely double masculine. I'm hearing a lot of TE, a lot of SE, But again, he's fucking great. I love both of them. He is definitely one of the reasons that I am an actor, weirdly enough, because he was on Boston Public, and I was like, oh, I want to do that. So that's like a good intro to them. But what's wild about Whitney, what I now realize that I really gravitated towards in her comedy, is like she is so fucking smart. Like I know smart people. I am like seeped in smart people in lots and lots and lots and lots of areas of my life. But a lot of the people who I'm around and who are like the smart people in my life, a lot of them are very TI smart, or they're TINE smart. Like they're that kind of smart. They're that archetype of, they're like the super deep. They have worked out all of the logic blocks in their head in the most perfect Jenga way. And I look at that and I'm like, how the fuck do you go so deep? Yeah, Jesus Christ. Oh my God. Yeah, that is, oh fuck. And so, you know, when I am interested in something that they're an expert in, it's great. But I care about the spectrum. Like I'm very much, you know, breadth over depth when it comes to my tea. And I listened to Whitney talk and I was like, Jesus Christ, you're smart. You're like I listen to this woman and I feel stupid. It is really hard to make me feel stupid. It's really hard. I have a very high opinion of myself when it comes to my intelligence, and especially when it comes to my TE. Like TI, I can sort of write that off as like, we're not playing the same game. You're playing the TI game. I'm playing the TE game. It's just different kinds of intelligence. But to see somebody do what my saviors want to do and just fucking run circles around me and have the audacity to do like NITE blast about it too. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I even fucking doing with my life? And it's different. I'm going to bring up Lauren Zander because, again, they're sort of, again, lead TE in that doc. Lauren Zander does not like oil. Lauren Zander and I are like oil and water. I have a very complicated emotional relationship with Lauren Zander. She's like, I can listen to her for about 4 seconds and then I have to not listen to her because she just gets into my head and it just inspires a weird amount of negativity in me. And I was like, this is not helpful. This is not inspiring me to move towards my best and highest good. I'm off it. I'm off Lauren Zander. I can't do it. But with Whitney, I'm like, oh, we're working through shit together. Like I feel like the two of them are doing really, really similar things, but Whitney's does it in a way that just resonates with me more, right? The breathing, the whatever, I don't know. As a side note, I have started breathing more consciously. Fucking game changer. Game changer. This whole past week on my personal Facebook page, I started I was just talking about breath all week. And in this last video that I just did on Friday, there was a chunk where I literally just sat and breathed for probably 30 seconds. And it was just that. And it was so cool. It was so meditative. We were all just like in the moment together. And I bring that up because I can hear her, like she's so good at using her saviors and then also knowing when she's overdoing it. And it sort of got me thinking about like, why would one gravitate to any alpha, right? Like why would one, what would make somebody want to put an alpha like in their alpha bucket? Michelle Obama, she's another one in my alpha bucket. Again, they're fucking there again, another lead TE, demon FI. Like, yeah, okay, this is clearly like what I'm working through. And that's sort of the first thing is like for me, again, May is my demon FI, but I'm just telling you what has worked for me. I can have admiration for someone like Jocko, for the success that he's had. I can have an extraordinary admiration for someone like Tom Bilyeu, who just fucking squigillionaire, whatever. But like, I look at Tom's struggles and I'm like, okay, that's fair. I don't really struggle with that as much. Russell Brand is another one. Again, lead FE, masculine feeling plus masculine sensory. Of course, I would gravitate towards him. Plus being an EJ. And so I think that when you're thinking about like who do I want to look up to, who are the alphas or whatever. I think that the safest place to start is somebody maybe who is not in your doc specifically, but who has worked through whatever your big life problem has been, right? So again, for me, because I'm a glass lizard, uh, and I even spoke to Dave about this, and he's like, "Oh fuck, yeah, I can absolutely see this framing working for you." So I have now told myself, my self narrative is that I am lead NI with FI last because it's my single activated demon. And so what will happen with me is that my SE tidal waves are going to be bigger, but I can see them coming, right? And I sort of talked about this in sort of like the weird chair rotation video. But for those who need a refresher, if your savior is like, if your lead function is right in front of you, and your first savior function is like off to the side a little bit, you're still only seeing like a pretty small chunk of reality. And if you're all in on your lead function and your second function, that last function is gonna fucking wreck you a lot, like a lot. And as a glass lizard, I don't have that problem because what's happening is that my body is effective. So if lead NI is this way, my body is by default tilted in this direction. So it's like, are you an EJ? Like, you might actually just be an EJ because, like, I can see the SE tidal wave coming out of my periphery. And so, yes, it's bigger, but, like, I'm not surprised by it. I can always see the SE tidal wave. Not always, but, like, generally speaking, I can see the SE tidal wave coming. I can brace myself for it, plan for it, run towards it, whatever. Like, it's not this invisible, scary monster thing. But because I'm facing this way, my FI is over here. And yes, the tidal wave is smaller. And yes, I can go back and forth kind of, but like it always catches me by surprise when my FI kicks my ass. So, that's sort of why I really gravitate towards these EJs, because what I'm listening for, and what I listen for in Whitney in particular, is like what the work that she has done on her FI, very inspiring, very interesting. But what I'm really looking for when I listen to her is like all of the DE triggers that she has learned, right? And it's her being, she's so hyper conscious of her people-pleasing nature, her codependency, the ways in which she adapts and adjusts her behavior for other people. She might even be double feminine. Again, like if she has like feminine TE and feminine sensory and doubling up on the play, like just so swooshy, like, oh yeah, whatever, I don't care, I'll do whatever. And then she has this intense, like masculine swing of like her, if she has, allegedly masculine NI and masculine FI, both as a demon, or as her last animal. I don't know if she's lead blast, lead play, whatever, but she's in that realm. Again, a number of different OP explanations. I would be curious to see if Shave has ever typed her. But what I love to listen for is she's like, I know that when I have a certain animalistic reaction, again, she doesn't use these words because to the best of my knowledge, she has never heard of OP. But she's like, I know that when there's a narcissist in the room, like the chemicals in my body react a certain way. And I'm like, oh, that's narcissist energy. Great. And then she has learned over time, like now that she's not in her 20s anymore, to be like, oh, right, narcissist energy. I know that I am just, that it's triggering experiences and reminding me of a void that I think that I should have, but that I don't, that it's not actually a healthy relationship. And so I know to keep my distance. And I'm like, how the fuck fuck did you work all of? Oh my God. Good Lord. Give me more. Tell me all the things. Tell me all your triggers so that I can fucking take notes and sort of understand for myself, like, just being aware of the chemical reaction. Because, like, as a lead TE, which she is, and double activated savior blast play TE, I have a lot of EJ-ish qualities, like a lot of EJ-ish qualities. We don't the lead TE does not like the chemicals. Chemicals aren't fun. It's not like I enjoy this. Like, we don't get a rise out of it. We don't get a rush of feel. Even fucking good chemicals, we're like, nope, all chemicals bad. Not the most helpful. Not the most helpful or fun way to go through life. Like, even when there's a bit, and she said this a couple of times, there's a bit that she talks about where, like, she talks about how she has anhedonia, which is that she can't be present and really enjoy the moment because she's so worried about it ending, and she gets anxious about, like, well, I should be enjoying this because I'm here and it's going to be over soon. Oh my God, it's ending soon. Because to her, she's all about, like, she talks a lot about the planning, and, like, she recognizes her tendency to overplan and how that kicks her ass. Like, and I'm like, yep, speaking my language. Hang on, let me take. How did you get over this? So, right. So, like, a lot of that stuff, I'm sort of listening to and being like, I vibe this. But really just hearing her get so in touch with her chemicals and being like, no, these chemicals that I am feeling, this is information that I need to be happy and healthy and productive and have meaningful connections and to be, the best version of myself. I need to be aware of these chemicals and to acknowledge my fears and anxieties and, like, the NF stuff that we don't always want to do as somebody who is demon NF, especially demon NF sleep. It's like, no, this is internal. This is abstract. It's like abstract plus chemicals, and it's inside. No, fuck you. Like, what? Absolutely not. We just don't want to do the work oftentimes. And in order to do the work, we have to sort of, like, hack our brain to be like, to, like, start to do it and see the results and be like, oh, right, I know that when I do this kind of work, when the situation appears, it's worth leaning into this work because I know that on the other side, it'll be better, it'll be easier, it'll be whatever. And it's been so inspiring to just hear her talk about that. And so I bring this up in the context of alpha. Again, it's episode 108. I got to get a little hippy dippy today. When you're thinking about, like, who do I want to download? Another one who's on my list for sure, Karamo Brown from Queer Eye. He's a special one. I don't think we have a lot in common, like, OP type wise. But in terms of our lived experience, both being people of color, both sort of struggling with masculinity and what that means, as sort of, like, young men, like, I think Karamo, I think he's maybe 10 years older than I am at most. Oh, he's 6. He's not even that much older than I am. He's like 6 years older than I am. Yeah, 1980. Yeah, okay. Makes sense. Why I would gravitate towards him. And again, I'm sure I probably saw him on the real world subconsciously, in college, here and there, whatever. But, like, don't start with somebody who just is successful. And I'm even going to go so far as to say, Dave and Chan might disagree. feel free to disagree. If you disagree, this is just my personal opinion. Don't go for somebody who's doing what you want to do. I don't think that's going to help you, because it's so easy for me to be like, you know what? I think I enjoy speaking engagements. I want to, I want public speaking. Like, that's, again, sort of the big come to Jesus realization thing that I knew back in 2014, but like just couldn't fully articulate. Like, I absolutely want public speaking to be a cornerstone of my professional life. 100%. They very, 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 very much want that. I think I'd be good at it. I like it. I love the idea of, doing speaking engagements, being on talk shows, having a podcast, like just being a professional talker person is extraordinarily appealing to me. What? A lead blaster likes to talk? Fucking mind blown, right? But I'm not going to look at somebody like Gary Vee, because he doesn't really resonate with me. Even though he's EJ, he's not, like, I appreciate the success that he has had, but it feels like we're working through two very different things, especially with him being NT last and doubling up on his savior SF. That's not going to help me as much. It's not going to help me as much. Especially with him as a lead play. Again, not super duper my struggle as much. Like, I really do look for like the lead blasters, like Michelle Obama for sure. Allegedly Whitney Cummings for sure. It's why I like Russell Brand so much. Why I like Oprah so much, because it's not just the savior DE part. And again, they're doubling up on different things and whatever. But like also their lead NI struggles, especially feminine NI, really, really useful to me. Absolutely. So, that would be my first piece of advice, is like, don't go for somebody who's doing what you want to do. Really look for like a role model, and not in the sense of like, oh, like I want to do the roles that Denzel does. That's not untrue, but studying Denzel is not going to help me become the best version of me. It's going to help me follow Denzel's path, which may or may not align with mine. But like, I'm trying to forge my own path, as all of us are, and I think all of us should be. So what we want to be looking for is like that North Star of, okay, how do I navigate my, like, I'm still trying to navigate my path, but I'm going to crib from all of these other people and be like, hey, so I got this log in front of me. I don't know what the fuck to do about it. Let me look at these other alphas and be like, how did they solve the log in the path? Right, log in the path. Okay, right, because going around, I can't go around it because then I'm in the jungle. All right, well, I guess I just have to jump over the log. Oh, that's really good, though. Okay, so step one, check for bugs on the log. Because if there are bugs on the log or there's moss and it's slick, I can't vault over it. So I have to clear away right? Like, it's that sort of a thing where I'm not following their path. I'm just taking the skeleton of what they're doing and sort of similar problems and mapping them onto my own and just using it as a little bit of a guide. And so I have found that to be incredibly helpful. Sorry, I'm talking about moss and bugs, and now my hands, I'm having like a kinesthetic response to like feeling like I have the stuff actually literally on my hands. So I'm doing this. Sorry. Oh, fuck, now I got moss in my mouth. God damn it. I don't actually have Raja, there's no moss in your apartment. There's no moss. It's fine. You're fine. Calm the fuck down. So that would be my first thing is like, don't look for people who are doing what you want to do necessarily. Maybe that'll help, maybe that won't, but it's not a sure thing. And then once you have like a slightly better idea of your type, if you've been in the class for a couple of months, you should have some idea of what your saviors are, what your demons are, loosely. Maybe you'll type yourself backwards, upside down. I just saw somebody recently post. They thought they were lead sleep. They're actually lead play, sleep last. Who the fuck knows, right? But like, step would just like try something, and like you got to try on a bunch of clothes. You just have to try shit and be like, listening to this person doesn't help me. Great. Toss that person out. You do not need to download somebody who doesn't fucking help you just because it helped Shan. That's not there. You are under no obligation. This is your bucket. You don't have to like it may help you, it may not, but they're not the end all be all. So I think that that's a really good starting place to be like, all right, who's just somebody I want to be more like? Not a bad place to start. You know who I've learned a lot from, in addition to the EJs, the other people who all like really, really gravitate towards hard. Anybody who is lead ST with NF last. Anybody who's lead ST, I will download the fuck out of them by default. Now, so I bring up Jocko in this context, right? Okay. Not unhelpful, right? Doubling up on his ST play, NF sleep last. All right, that's somewhat helpful. But he is savior, double activated, lead as masculine SE. I'm not going to get quite as much out of it as I would with somebody like Brene Brown, who's, again, fucking alpha as fuck, in my opinion. Lead masculine SI, feminine TE, doubling up on her ST blast, NF consume last. Yeah, that sounds about right. Sounds about right up my alley, right? So that would be sort of my second part is like, you can draw from other parts of the map, because like, okay, maybe Brene Brown doesn't have ST play, but she does have lead double activated ST problems. So if I'm having an NF problem, Brene is a pretty good one to listen to because she has similar NF last problems, right? So those would be my two pieces of advice. Find somebody who, when you're just starting out, like, who do I like? Like, who do I want to be more like? Like, who do I want to emulate? Who do I want to be like a role model? And then from there, once you've started to like find some people, then I think that it's fair to be like, okay, what does their map look like? What does my map look like? Maybe I can branch out. Again, there are so many great resources on the OP website. They typed a bunch of people in their class. You can find somebody who is in or close to your doc pretty easily, or at least close enough. Like at this point, they've typed enough people. There's enough public information. You definitely can do the thing. I promise. So that's it, man. And I think that, in the event that, the Whitney or somebody who's a fan of hers hears this, I just want to say thank you. You've definitely opened up a lot of things for me personally. And I know you hear this all the time, but I really do appreciate it. And it's not often that I hear someone who talks like me. I feel like I have a pretty iconoclastic way of speaking, namely the fact that you and I will use words like iconoclast and bifurcate and talk about fucking Sword of Damocles out of fucking nowhere. and have it make sense. And I'm like, oh, wow, okay. If you can talk like that, then I can talk like that too. And I just appreciate the freedom that you have given me. So thank you. That's all I got for tonight. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.